Today we are bringing you 5 terrifying true crime cases that shocked the world. These cases are all unique in their own way, but caused massive community outcry when they happened. Stick with us as we take you through every detail of these 5 shocking cases. Case number 1. The gruesome case of Aiden Fucci. This CCTV footage captured a 13-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy walking through the night. Nothing about the footage looks particularly odd. However, the events that took place after this footage would bring a community to its knees and make international news. We would like to send our condolences to the family and loved ones of Tristan Bailey. "13-year-old Tristan Bailey grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. She had a love for cheerleading and would go to practice regularly. She attended the Patriot Oaks Academy in what was more of an upmarket school for gifted teens. Tristan was your typical American teenage girl, hanging out with friends, spending time on social media, and even starting to gain the attention of boys. Unfortunately, she would gain the wrong type of attention out of no fault of her own. Sunday, May 9th, 2021, Mother's Day. Tristan Bailey's parents had woken up in the morning and started to make breakfast. When they went into Tristan's room to call her for breakfast, she wasn't there. After calling out her name and looking everywhere, she was nowhere to be found. They immediately called the police and reported her missing. The police went straight to the media in the hopes that someone had some news on her whereabouts. Tristan and her family lived in Durban Crossing, which had an exceptionally low crime rate. Children would freely play on the street and there were never reports of a child missing. With such a close community of people, the news of a missing teenager spread through the community almost instantly. People were jumping to help in any way they could to find Tristan, from making flyers to searching all over the neighborhood. This also caused many residents to check their camera footage in case they may have captured something. And as a matter of fact, one resident did capture what looked like Tristan walking with another male on camera. Police were able to quickly identify the male walking with her as 14-year-old Aiden Fucci. They were captured walking down the road at 1:15 a.m. heading towards a wooded area. 3 hours or so later, Aiden is captured walking the opposite way from the wooded area. But he is alone. Tristan's parents certainly didn't allow her out at that time of night, so it was presumed that she snuck out so she could go with Aiden. Investigators immediately went to Aiden's house to confront the teen. They advised him they were going to take him to the station for questioning. While in the back of the police cruiser, Aiden pulled out his phone and posted this to Snapchat.
We're having fun in a f***ing cop car.
Yep. Tristan.
What's up, guys?
Yep.
Tristan, if you f***ing walk out the damn...
When you see this in a month.
The footage and pictures went viral amongst the community and had people speculating if Aiden Fucci had something to do with the crime. While Aiden was being transported to the police department, they did a search of his bedroom. Inside, though, they found several pieces of clothing with blood on them, and disturbing satanic drawings including girls with mutilated limbs and genitals. Detectives asked Aiden why there was a 3-hour gap between the time he walked to the wooded area and then back home again. He claimed he was just walking around alone getting some fresh air and returned home around 3:30 a.m. Only 16 hours after she was reported missing, the tragic news was confirmed.
Orange County Sheriff's Department says the search for a missing Florida teenager has been called off after a body was found. 13-year-old Tristan Bailey was reported missing around 10 Sunday morning. She was last seen around 1:15 that morning at the Durban Amenity Center. The search was called off.
A resident who was going on his daily jog came across the gruesome discovery of Tristan's body. She was found in the wooded area Aiden was observed heading towards on the CCTV footage, near the cul-de-sac of Saddlestone Drive next to the lake. He notified authorities immediately, who descended to the area. At first glance, it was obvious that the girl had multiple stab wounds. Tristan's parents confirmed that the body was that of their beloved daughter. Authorities began searching the nearby lake for the murder weapon, and after a long and exhaustive search, they were able to locate it. It was a small pocket knife that appeared to have the end of it bent and damaged slightly, which would come into play later in the investigation. The investigators now began to shift their focus back to Aiden. He had been sent to juvenile detention while the case was ongoing due to probable cause, and his first hearing was done via a Zoom conference call. Prosecutors advised that they were convinced that they had the right person, and if so, would prosecute Aiden as an adult. This meant for Aiden that if convicted, he would likely get a life sentence without parole. Investigators were convinced that Aiden had done this, but they had no motive as to why he would do it. They began to question some of his friends and acquaintances at school, and some of the stories they got were disturbing, to say the least. Aiden's girlfriend at the time, whose name has not been released due to being a minor, told police of a disturbing statement. The girlfriend told investigators that Aiden talked about death and killing a lot, and would pretend to stab her and told her she'd be easy to kill while she slept. Aiden also told his girlfriend that he planned on killing someone within a month, which was only a week before the event with Tristan took place. Other classmates had told police that Aiden had made statements such as, "I'm going to prison one day," and "I want to kill someone someday just to know what it feels like." Police now had a pretty clear indication of what Aiden's motive for carrying out this act was. When the news that Aiden was going to be trialed as an adult came out, many in the community were divided, saying that it wasn't fair to lock a kid away for the rest of his life. That is, until the details of the case were also shared. Tristan was stabbed 114 times, 49 of them being defensive wounds as the poor girl fought for her life. It was even found that a piece of steel broke off from the knife and was embedded into her skull, which rendered the knife ineffective. This is what likely stopped the attack, or that number could have been significantly higher. It was obvious that the intention here was purely to kill, and suddenly those jumping to Aiden's defense fell silent. There was another twist in the case. Aiden's mother, Crystal Smith, was arrested and charged with a felony count for tampering with evidence. After learning of the charges against her son, she found the jeans he was wearing on the night and decided to try and wash the blood out of them thoroughly. Unfortunately for her, she had installed cameras inside of her residence which captured her attempting to wash away the evidence. Investigators confiscated the footage and ultimately had evidence of her washing the jeans, knowing the implications of doing so. Aiden was still protesting his innocence, and in a rare interview of him talking to his parents, admitted he kissed the girl but denies doing anything else.
What were you doing outside that late at night?
I was at Trey's house hanging with them.
Did you kiss or do anything with this girl?
Be honest as you can to them.
Two.
Yes.
Yeah, I kissed her.
Any further?
By this stage, prosecutors felt they had an airtight case and brought a charge of first-degree premeditated murder against Aiden. His initial plea was not guilty. Aiden was to appear via video link at a hearing and appeared to be disoriented, and at one point, sounds like he's asking demons not to take his soul.
What you got going on? I don't want to hear you demons. I don't want to hear you demons take my soul. You demons want to take my soul away. I don't want to let you demons steal my soul. I don't know what's going on. What I see you. What's going on? What you got going on? Why am I here? I just want to talk to my mom and dad. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
It seems like this was a ploy to gain attention or try to swing the case into pleading for insanity, but none of the prosecutors bought the act. As Aiden sat in a prison cell while the court case was ongoing, he started claiming he was a victim of ongoing torture.
Exclusively right now on First Coast News tonight, the St. Johns County teen accused of murdering his middle school classmate claims he is enduring, quote, ongoing torture at the Duval County Jail. Aiden Fucci, who is being charged as an adult in the stabbing death of 13-year-old Tristan Bailey, is being held in solitary confinement at the jail, according to a new motion filed in the case. Fucci's attorneys say he was placed in solitary because of, quote, threats of violence against him within the jail and for prior disciplinary and action and also suicidal ideation. The motion says solitary confinement amounts to cruel and unusual punishment and will result in psychological harm.
Then came the news that Aiden was attempting to extort other inmates and continually making threats against them.
Tonight, a teenager accused of murdering his 13-year-old classmate has been threatening and extorting other teen inmates, according to jail officials with new material we've just received. According to records obtained by First Coast News, Aiden Fucci has threatened violence against correction officers and other inmates and allegedly bragged about his crime.
Eventually, Aiden and his legal team changed their plea to guilty on February 6th, 2023.
Okay.
And Mr. Fucci just wanted to make a short statement.
I just want to say I plead out guilty. And that I'm sorry for the Bailey family and my family.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure that there'll be an opportunity, obviously, at sentencing hearing to speak again at that time. Okay?
Yes, sir.
He was set to be sentenced on March 24th, 2023. Family members were allowed to give victim impact statements before the court, and what they had to say was heartbreaking.
114. This jar now holds 114 stones, one for each of the 114 stab wounds that my sister had to endure.
Every single day, I can't help but wonder what would have happened had I slept on that couch instead, or if I had stayed up later. Tristan was a 13-year-old. She had a personality brighter than fireworks, and she was being a teenager. But had I slept on that couch that was within earshot of our front door, there's a possibility my little sister could still be alive today.
As later we learned, that friend Tristan thought she had ambushed our youngest Bailey by stabbing her 114 times. Over and over and over, to the point where we all know, she fought her fight and had nothing left in her body to give. And yet he continued, like an absolute coward. You, Aiden Fucci, decided to overpower a 5'3" innocent 13-year-old girl. How much more of a coward could you possibly be?
Judge R. Lee Smith made a blunt statement about the case.
I would submit that this case is probably the most difficult and shocking case that this county in St. Johns County has dealt with. In the 20 years that I have been, or 16 years that I have been practicing law, and the 30 years that I have lived and worked in this, all of Northeast Florida, this case is one of only a very small few that had this level and this type of impact on the community. 114 stab wounds, 49 defensive wounds, 35 wounds to the head and neck, 29 to the back and shoulder, and 6 fatal wounds. This court has reviewed and seen more than its fair share of autopsy photos. The autopsy photos in this particular case were particularly difficult.
Aiden Fucci now received a sentence for the brutal killing of an innocent young girl.
Mr. Fucci, if you and your attorneys would please rise. Counsel, is there any legal reason why this court cannot impose sentence at this time?
No, sir.
Mr. Fucci, having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I adjudicate you guilty of the premeditated first-degree murder of Tristan Bailey. I sentence you to life in prison. Because of your age, you are eligible for review of the sentence in 25 years.
Aiden later released an apology letter to the community. Tristan's father couldn't help but feel that he didn't mean what he wrote.
During Wednesday's proceedings and the filings at the end of the day, there were several apologies given from Aiden and some members of Aiden's family. Foremost to his grandmother, your apology on the stand really touched us. It was the first time anyone in your family had acknowledged it, and we feel for you as we could tell how much you are hurting. With respect to the apology letter from Aiden, from his behavior at court, at no point has his actions fell in line with the letter.
Aiden's mother, Crystal Smith, was also sent to trial and convicted of the tampering with evidence charge. She was sentenced to 30 days in jail for her part in the case. With cases like this, it is the senseless loss of life for no particular reason that baffles most people. Many of us can't comprehend why someone would do such a thing. Out there though, within our world, evil exists, and sometimes it is in the form of a 14-year-old boy. And that wraps up today's case. Case number 2, the tragic case of Joshua Stimson. This CCTV footage captures a woman and a man working out at their local gym. The footage looks nothing out of the ordinary. That is, until you learn of the truly horrifying events that took place after this. This footage would eventually make news worldwide for all of the wrong reasons. We would like to send our condolences to the family and loved ones of Molly McLaren. Molly McLaren, age 23, lived in the town of Cobham in Kent, England. She was a shy girl that had suffered with eating disorders and other mental health issues, but she was beginning to get her life together. She had begun a degree in exercise, sport, and health education at the University of Kent. Molly had trouble in the past fitting in with other people, but this brought her opportunities to meet people and join sporting clubs. She made friends with a lot of people and became quite popular amongst a new group of friends. Her friends described her as a person who would do anything for you, a kind-hearted and caring person. She started working out regularly and even kept a blog of her activities. Molly hadn't had a lot of luck on the dating scene, however, and there was a new app that was all the rage in 2016. She downloaded the popular app Tinder and began matching with guys. She saw one guy she liked the look of and swiped right on Joshua Stimson. 26-year-old Joshua Stimson was living in Woodham, only 7 miles away from Molly. Joshua had grown up in a fractured household, with his dad accused of abusing his mother. This led to his mother to seek a divorce, which left Joshua in his dad's custody and him feeling abandoned by his mother's abrupt departure. He suffered his own battles with mental illnesses also from a young age and was taking antidepressants to treat it. From the outside looking in, he just looked like a normal guy. His dating past, however, was disturbing to say the least. His previous relationship had ended when his then girlfriend felt like Joshua was trying to control her, and she stated she wanted to break up. It ended in a fiery confrontation where Joshua spat in her face before abusing her and storming off. Joshua matched with Molly in July 2016. The two spoke back and forth and were both heavily into fitness, so they got along well and had a lot in common. They had both talked with each other about their battles with mental illness and how they had overcome it. After almost 5 months of chatting, in November 2016 they decided to meet each other. They would catch up regularly, and eventually it blossomed into a relationship. Molly's previously had no real relationships, so she was over the moon and couldn't wait to have Joshua meet her friends and family. However, when Joshua did finally meet them, he didn't really take the time to talk to them and seemed kind of uninterested. Molly's parents began to notice that he wanted her attention all of the time and wouldn't take no for an answer. If Molly had planned to go out with her friends, he would arrive at her house before she left and convince her to stay with him instead, saying he was having a depressive episode. When Molly had to study all weekend, he stayed there for the entire weekend, complaining that he had to sit there in silence while she studied, and that it wasn't fair. Molly's social life had begun to suffer, and it felt like all she ever did was cater to Joshua's needs. She messaged Joshua and said they needed to spend some time apart. And he fired back with a scathing message, insulting and abusing her for taking advantage of him. Molly consulted with her friends, who realized by this stage he was manipulative and controlling. She knew she had to break it off with him. Molly sent him a message telling him that she didn't want to see him anymore. And this led to him begging for a second chance, and even going as far as to blaming her, and saying the problems with their relationship were only in her head, and that she needed to see a GP. She began to believe it and took him back. After dating for a period of time, things had begun to improve, until Joshua slowly slipped back into his old and controlling ways. In April 2017, the pair attended Molly's aunt's 60th birthday at a hotel, and he would make derogatory comments when Molly was dancing with family members during the celebrations. Later that night in their hotel room, it boiled over into an argument that led to Joshua showing videos of Molly on his phone he had secretly recorded during their arguments. He had kept the recording simply so he had something to use against her, and this pushed Molly to the point of which he had finally had enough. It came to head on Molly's 23rd birthday, when they had went out for birthday drinks. Joshua, in one of his usual moods, pushed Molly over the edge, and in front of all of her friends she screamed, "It's over." He flew into a seething rage, scaring everyone around him. It was so obvious to Molly's friends that something was not right with Joshua. Joshua began begging Molly again to take him back, and she continually rejected his advances. It got so bad with Joshua pestering her that she was forced to block his phone number and block him in all forms of social media. He was so hurt by this that he began trying to tarnish her reputation and started writing hurtful messages on Facebook, such as she was a drug abuser. Molly, having had blocked him, only found out through family members that Joshua was posting these messages. She printed out all of the abusive text messages, social media posts, and her phone records and went down to the Kent police station with her mother to report it. Police took down her statement, and while Molly's mother was present, police rang Joshua on a conference call and warned him that he would face prosecution if he continued. He was advised to remove the post from social media immediately. Joan recalls him protesting his innocence and even firing back at police, saying, "If you think I have done wrong, there is more to come." The officer politely replied and told the young man, "We wouldn't want Molly to come back to the station about you again, would we?" To which Joshua replied, "Wouldn't we?" The police broke the news to Molly that what Joshua had done was not classified as harassment, and in the eyes of the law, he had not committed any offense. A few days had passed, and Joshua continued to post derogatory statements online about Molly. She contacted police, but was told the officer involved with her case was on leave, and that he would return in a few days and deal with it then. After a few days had passed, police contacted Molly again, and it was great news. Joshua had removed the social media posts. Molly began to feel that things might finally be over, and breathed a sigh of relief. But what she didn't know is that Joshua had been on a Tinder date with another woman, who he convinced to add Molly on all of her social media accounts. She would then feed all of that information back to Joshua. Several days later, Molly had posted that she was going with some friends to the Ship and Trades pub in Chatham on her social media. Joshua saw this and organized with his new Tinder date to beat her at the same time as Molly. Molly left the table she was at with her friends to order some food, but when she returned, she had a horrified look on her face. She explained to her friends that she had just seen Joshua with his new date. Feeling like it wasn't a coincidence, she decided to eat her food once it arrived and leave early. For her friends, though, it would be the last time that they would ever see her alive. The next morning, Molly got up and went to the dockside gym to film a workout and arrived at 10:10 a.m. As she arrived, there was nobody else in the workout room, and she rolled out a mat and began exercising. Little did she know that Joshua had arrived at the gym and was captured walking upstairs towards the room she was in. He sees Molly, turns around, and walks down the stairs. Before brazenly strolling into the room Molly was exercising in. He sets a mat down right next to her and begins exercising. Molly confronts him and asks if he was following her. He replies that it's none of her business. She grabs her things and moves to another part of the gym and starts sending texts to her mom and friends about Joshua. At 10:45, she sends a text to her mom, Joan. "Mom, he's turned up at the gym and come next to me." Molly also texted her friend Amy Lee at 10:59 a.m. She sent a picture of Joshua working out right next to her. Amy advised her to get out of there and leave for home immediately. By this stage, Joshua had already left the gym, although Molly wasn't aware of this. As she returned to her black Citroen, she received another text from Amy at 11:02 a.m., which said, "He has no sense of what's normal. He is a freak. Just stay away from him." While she was looking at her phone, she did not see Joshua walking towards her vehicle. Joshua swung the door open on her car, and without saying a thing, began to stab Molly over and over, unrelentingly. She tried to defend herself, but she had nowhere to run. Joshua did not stop until he saw Molly move no more. He exited her car and just stood there, emotionless. He waited for police to show up, and while standing there, just covered in blood, simply said, "It's me you're looking for. She's in the car, and I've killed her." The paramedics raced to her aid, but there was nothing more they could do to save Molly. She was pronounced dead at the scene at 11:43 a.m. Later examinations would find that Joshua had inflicted 75 stab wounds on Molly. By this stage, Molly's mother Joan began to worry as she had not heard back from her daughter. And that became panic as one of Molly's friends had texted and asked if she had known anything about an attack at Dockside. Eventually, the heartbreaking news was confirmed. Her dear Molly was dead. Joshua's trial started in 2018. He had pleaded not guilty, and his defense was arguing that he had a diminished responsibility due to a personality disorder. Psychiatrist Dr. Sahid Majid argued in Joshua's defense that he was suffering from a severe case of borderline personality disorder at the time of the murder. He had also claimed that Joshua was suffering from an abnormality of functioning, owing to his mental illness and the abandonment issues that had stemmed from his parents' divorce. Joshua also claimed he had a hypersensitivity to any rejection. The prosecution argued against this claim and stated that Joshua gave no signs of having a mental disorder that impeded his understanding enough to not hold him responsible for his actions. He had shown no remorse over killing Molly and was only interested in trying to preserve himself. A jury deliberated for just under 4 hours before returning with a verdict. Joshua Stimson was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 26 years imprisonment. Judge Adele Williams said Joshua didn't have a personality disorder, but just an issue with women. As the trial had gone on, more and more women came forward with claims of being stalked, threatened, and abused by Joshua, many of which had been reported to the police. This had highlighted a huge problem within the police force in handling these types of cases. Many times, the police would simply text the offender and tell him or her to stop, but record nothing further than that. Had they recorded it appropriately and been able to see the extensive stalking history of Joshua Stimson, Molly just may still be alive today. Molly McLaren's family released a statement after the trial concluded.
The verdict has brought us a small measure of comfort, but it seems that nothing will take away the pain or allow us to come to terms with our Molly being taken from us. We are serving a lifetime of pain, anguish and loss. This has affected so many people's lives, and our hearts go out to each and every one of you.
Police procedures have now been drastically revamped in the wake of this case, and all stalking incidents must now be put to police record. Molly's family also set up the Molly McLaren Foundation, which aims to provide support and raise awareness towards eating disorders. And that wraps up today's case. Case number 3, the unbelievable case of Stephen Duxbury. Sasha Samsudeen returned home after a night out with her friends and was captured on this CCTV footage. She can be seen with a security guard who was escorting her back to her residence as the 27-year-old had been out drinking. Only hours later after this footage was captured, Sasha would be found dead in her apartment by local authorities, In a gated community patrolled by security guards and monitored cameras, how could such a thing happen? We would like to send our condolences to the family and loved ones of Sasha Samsudeen. Sasha grew up in Florida. She was a bright and bubbly person and she enjoyed the company of her friends. She graduated from the University of Florida and quickly found herself a job as a social media manager for Pearson, which was a perfect fit for her skill set. Sasha would also promote apartments and was gaining a reputation as a great on-camera personality.
Hi, I'm Sasha with 407 Apartments TV. I'm here at the Edge Orlando Apartments near UCF, so let's go check out what they have to offer. If you'd like to find out more information about the Edge Apartments in Orlando, check us out at 407apartments.com.
While her reputation was increasing in the promotional space, people began to take notice of her at her work at Pearson as well. She eventually became the director of operations in only a short amount of time. While she was a beautiful young lady, she was also highly motivated, a go-getter. She was a results-driven person but also had a warm and relatable personality that saw her get along with everyone around her. After spending her time promoting apartments for other people, Sasha looked to get an apartment of her own. While Central Florida didn't see as much crime as other US states, security was a priority for Sasha. She settled on an upmarket closed-gated community on North Orange Avenue called Uptown Apartments. This complex boasted some impressive security features. Each apartment had a quick-set digital deadbolt lock installed, which was accessible only by code. Surveillance cameras were installed around the complex and night guards watched over the community. Friday, October 16, 2015. Sasha had organized to go out with her friends. The Orlando City Lions soccer team was playing and Sasha went with her friends to watch the game. The Lions won the game and the group of friends were on a high, so they decided to continue the celebrations. Sasha and her friends went to Sidebar, a popular wood-lined game day bar that offers craft beers. After a few beverages, they decided to go to the Attic, a hip night spot and cocktail lounge. At around 12:30, Sasha told her friend Anthony that she was going home and that she would meet up with him the following morning at a cafe for breakfast. The next morning came around and Anthony went to the cafe to meet Sasha. She hadn't shown up at her agreed time, so Anthony ordered some food. He tried calling Sasha, but no answer. Since he was slightly hungover himself, he figured Sasha may have been the same, and may have slept in late. He finished his food and left the cafe. 2 more hours had passed and Sasha still had not contacted Anthony. He spoke with 2 of her best friends, Katie and Megan, who also tried ringing her phone, but got no answer. They were able to gain access to the complex and knocked on Sasha's door, but also got no answer. The friends called 911 and asked for a welfare check, as it was out of character for Sasha to be so uncontactable for this long. When police arrived, they spoke with the security guard Stephen Duxbury, who gave them access to Sasha's apartment. Police checked the apartment and found no sign of Sasha and nothing looked out of place. As one of the officers were about to leave, one of them took one last look at the bedroom and noticed the comforter had been rolled up. As he got closer, he could see that there was hair flowing out of one end of the comforter and a lifeless foot protruding off the other end. They had just found the lifeless body of Sasha Samsudeen. Police quickly moved to secure the crime scene and figure out how Sasha had been killed. It was obvious to investigators that she had been beaten and strangled. A later medical examination would report she was also sexually assaulted and had a neck fracture so bad it was usually only seen in car crashes. Her hands and arms showed defensive wounds. The young girl had fought for her life until the very end. Her family were devastated and looking for answers. How could this happen in such a secure community?
Suspicious death of a 27-year-old Orlando woman. Sasha Samsudeen's body was found Saturday night inside of her apartment at Uptown Place on North Orange Avenue. Right now, police are not releasing many details, but friends and neighbors say they were stunned to hear about it.
Typical girl, just nice, fun-loving girl. She wasn't too boastful, too loud. Just a nice, quiet type. She seemed to get along with everybody.
I guess kind of nervous because we don't really know how she was killed or if we should be concerned that there's someone dangerous living in our building.
Investigators found no evidence of forced entry, although Sasha's key for the building was missing. They theorized that she may have let her attacker into her apartment, so it could be a resident of the complex. The apartment had an overwhelming smell of bleach, and the attacker had made an effort to cover his tracks. Bleach was found on the floor, on the bed, and even poured all over Sasha. This attacker had not intended to be caught. They did, however, leave a condom wrapper on the floor by the bedside table. The toilet seat was also left up, which was later found to have 2 thumbprints on it. Investigators found several size 9 shoe prints throughout the apartment. A DNA profile of the attacker was also obtained from Sasha's body. It seems the attacker hadn't covered his tracks well enough after all. Police began asking questions of everyone in the community and questioned the security guard Stephen Duxbury. He had been working as a security guard at the apartments for 5 months and was new to the occupation. Ex-US Air Force and recently married, he didn't strike police as the type of person to do something like this. However, they questioned him anyway. Stephen told police Sasha arrived back at her apartment complex at around 1:45 a.m. with 2 other women, but didn't give any ID or her key fob to gain entry. She was refused entry but slipped past security when another resident arrived home. Stephen located Sasha trying to get into her apartment. She couldn't remember her code to get in. Sasha then asked if he could go with her to her car as she may have left the key fob in there, and he agreed. While almost at the car, she remembered the code and returned to try it again. She was still not able to enter it correctly, however. So Stephen left her to keep trying while he did a quick patrol of the building. When he came back past Sasha's apartment, she was gone, and figured she had made it inside safely. He claimed he hadn't seen her for the rest of the night, but later that morning, she had walked past him in a hallway with a man he had never seen before. Police were able to find CCTV footage from the attic where Sasha had visited earlier in the night, and it showed Sasha stumbling out of the club. On the street outside of the club, she was approached by 2 women who were unknown to Sasha's friends. Police then appealed to the public for the 2 women to come forward. In less than a day, Julia Goff and Haley Messmore had contacted police to give their story. They had noticed Sasha was intoxicated, had no phone, no purse, and had offered her to share a ride in their Uber so she could get home safely. She accepted their offer, and that is when she arrived home, seen by security with 2 other women. With leads now seemingly at a dead end, they began interviewing ex-boyfriends or any other known love interest in Sasha's life. Because of the ferocity of the attack, investigators believed it could be a crime of passion. Police were able to access Sasha's messages, which showed that on the night of her murder, she had been exchanging messages with a man named Ben. The last message that Sasha ever sent was at 5:12 a.m. and it simply said one word: Ben. Police found that this person was Ben Roebuck and asked him to come in for an interview. Ben had dated Sasha back in high school and during college, and they had kept in touch ever since. He even had a drink at the bar with her the previous Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, we'd hang out every so often, we'd meet up, downtown somewhere and hang out and grab a drink. She'd come over sometimes, if I was having a tough day, she'd give me some advice, and, we'd hang out and talk, and so we were close friends. She was there to support me when I needed it, and vice versa, so, yeah.
When was the last time you seen her?
I saw her Thursday night. We went out downtown.
And you haven't seen her since Thursday night?
Correct.
Okay. When's the last time you spoke to her?
I received a message from her at 5:12 a.m. on Saturday morning. That was are you talking about on the phone or via text message or anything?
On the phone or text message?
Yeah, text message. The last kind of back and forth we had was around 1 in the morning, but I got a message from her at 5:12 a.m. Just said my name, and then I responded about 16 minutes later, and I never heard back from her after that.
Although he was initially a suspect, police had obtained a DNA sample from Ben, which was not a match, and he was quickly ruled out of the investigation. Police began to go through all of the security footage of the apartments again, looking for clues. The first bit of footage shows Sasha entering at 1:46 a.m. An unknown man can be heard on the video asking if she was all right, and Sasha can be heard replying, "Yes, thank you."
You okay?
2 minutes after Sasha entered, Stephen Duxbury is observed entering, looking for Sasha. She is seen stumbling and attempting to head up another flight of stairs at this point. 17 minutes later at 2:06 a.m., she is picked up hastily going up a flight of stairs in an effort to get away from Stephen, thinking she is going to be thrown off the premises. He can be seen only seconds later shadowing her up the stairs. 19 minutes later, she appears on camera at 2:25 a.m., walking with Stephen to the first floor parking garage, where she was attempting to find her key fob. They then return not long after and head back to the 3rd floor at 2:27 a.m. Only minutes later are they observed on the 3rd floor when she remembers her code. This is the last footage of Sasha ever seen alive. At 5:05 a.m., Stephen is observed leaving the 3rd floor and re-entering at 5:13 a.m. One hour and 23 minutes later, at 6:36 a.m., Stephen Duxbury is observed leaving the 2nd floor carrying several white trash bags. He re-enters the building 2 minutes later, grabs his personal belongings, and leaves for the night at 6:40 a.m. It was not usual behavior for security guards to remove rubbish, and there was a 90-minute time period where his movements could not be accounted for. Residents had also made police aware that many complaints had been filed against Stephen. He had been reported for harassment multiple times and even been observed following females back to their apartments. He had been reported for making sexually suggestive comments and general lewd behavior. Police had now asked Stephen to come in and take a polygraph test. The first question asked by the interviewer to set a baseline was if he had ever been arrested before. The story he tells is bizarre to say the least.
Well, it's a really jacked up situation that happened. You guys understand, we all have life experiences. We all done stupid shit when we were young. Yeah. And we've grown from those. You know, you're not actively still doing the same silly stuff. Yeah. So it's all part of living and growing up, and it's called life. Yeah. And we're expected to do that because we're immature, we were young, and we were stupid. And that's how you learn. So, and no one here is going to judge you because I guarantee I've done probably worse than what you did probably. At some point, we've all done stupid stuff. So,
nah, basically it was just my best friend's older sister was babysitting my siblings because they wouldn't listen to me. My mother was a single mother raising 4 kids. We lived in a farm, and this is when I lived in Otis, Massachusetts. Kid that lived down the road kept sneaking over to our farm and opening all the doors, letting our animals out in the middle of the night, and we lived on a major highway. Mm-hmm. Well, I had to take the dogs out to the barn. She came with me to help me because I had a golden retriever and another dog. I think it was a chocolate lab. And while we were out there, I'd forgotten to plug in the cord that gave power to the barn in the house, so it was pitch black, and I thought I heard something upstairs. And I thought, oh God, that little shit's upstairs. So, you know, not really thinking, I went over to the wall of tools and I grabbed the first thing that seemed sense to me, which was a shovel head that had broken off its staff. Mm-hmm. I go up the stairs and she's following me. She was about a year or two older than I was. And, you know, she's kind of a little nervous about what's going on. So I'm like, hey, stay here at the top of the stairs. If anyone tries to run by you, stop them. She's like, okay. So I go walking around, but I can barely see anything because, you know, the moonlight, not really, you know, thinking too clearly, looking back. I'm walking, I hear floorboards creak, I see a shadow move out of the corner of my eye, turn around, upside the back of her head. Oh, she had moved and followed me. I didn't know. Okay, that's a simple mistake. Yeah, well, that simple mistake unfortunately went right down the worst roads possible. She freaks out, and I find out later that's because she had been raped by her 3 previous boyfriends and her uncle. So she had some severe issues with that. Mm-hmm. Her mother hated my mother because her kids felt more comfortable talking to my mother than her. So she forced Becky to press charges against me. State troopers in the area basically assumed I was trying to rape her or something. And then it just went from there. And we ended up having to leave the area. I moved to New Hampshire. They transferred my parole because they put me on parole because I pled guilty because rather than take it to court and have Becky's reputation utterly destroyed because my mother was her confidant. I took a hit because I'm not going to ruin my best friend's sister or his life over that, and just, I don't know. I probably could have won, but it's like I didn't want to hurt my friends. No, I completely understand.
The official police report stated that he had actually hit a girl over the head with a shovel, then while out cold attempted to sexually assault her until she came to, and Stephen ran away. He was convicted of aggravated assault as a result of the incident. After rambling on about many other things unrelated to the case, he was asked if he had ever entered Sasha's apartment. He was also asked if he had anything to do with her murder, or if he'd taken items from Sasha's apartment. He answered no to all of these questions, but the polygraph indicated high levels of deception. He had also shown extremely high levels of deception when asked about the cause of Sasha's death. It was obvious to the detective administering the polygraph that Stephen had something to do with this.
You know, obviously, my report's going to say that you didn't do too good on this test.
Yeah.
All right, and I have to explain that. You know, based on this, there's something going on here. What's that say?
Significant reactions. Probably this result was produced by a truthful person.
0.003% chance that the result was produced by a truthful person.
Damn.
Stephen protested his innocence, but by this stage, the evidence had begun piling up against him. Located in his apartment were a pair of size 9 sneakers that were confirmed to be the same print found in Sasha's apartment. The trash bags he was carrying out when he was caught on the CCTV were the same ones Sasha had in her apartment. Police had also observed scratches on both of his arms and one that even looked like a bite mark. Stephen had an explanation for that, a nervous condition that caused skin irritation. Several days later, the thumbprints found on the toilet seat were confirmed to belong to Stephen Duxbury. The final piece of damning evidence was the DNA match that came back from the sample take from Sasha's body. Police were still unsure of how Stephen got into Sasha's apartment to carry out the despicable act. After going through the search history on his phone, they found that a 5-minute period between 4:56 and 5:01, he had ran a quick search on how to override a quickset digital lock. At 5:12 a.m., Sasha had started writing the message to Ben, and at 5:13, Stephen can be seen re-entering the 3rd floor. Investigators summarized that he gained access to Sasha's apartment, interrupting her while typing the message to Ben. He then sexually assaulted her, physically assaulted her, and then strangled her to death. We attribute security guards to keeping us safe, and it is disturbing to think that one entrusted with your safety could be the very threat they were meant to prevent. Sasha's family were devastated, and when the facts of the case came out, they filed a lawsuit against Spectrum Brands, who manufactured the quickset lock. Their belief was, if it wasn't so easily bypassed, that Sasha may still be alive today. Case number 4. The confusing case of Skylar Nemetz. This 20-year-old soldier in the U.S. Army sits in this police cruiser, somewhat confused. He had just returned home after a 3-week training camp. Only shortly after he returned home, his wife was found dead. How could this have possibly happened? We would like to send our condolences to the family and loved ones of Danielle Nemetz. 19-year-old Danielle Nemetz was the kind of person that would walk into a room and instantly gain the attention of people. The good-looking young woman was an avid cheerleader, and she was made to be a flyer. A flyer in cheerleading is the athlete who is lifted into the air during a stunt and is on top of the stunt or pyramid. This was so fitting because of her tiny frame and her dream to soar to new heights. Many would compare her to a small stick of dynamite, loud and full of energy. Danielle was a happy, joyful, and compassionate young woman. Everyone she encountered felt her enormous heartfelt warmth and beautiful smile. While cheerleading in a high school football game in Northern California in October of 2012, she met a boy by the name of Skylar Nemetz. When they met, there was instant chemistry. Right after they met, Danielle began seriously dating Skylar, a recent high school graduate who had just joined the Army and was leaving soon to begin his basic military training in Georgia. Just 3 months later, during his Christmas break, Skylar brought Danielle a diamond ring and proposed to her on the top of Neelan Mountain. Fast forward another 3 months to March of 2013, and Skylar Nemetz graduated from boot camp in Georgia. The same day he graduated, the young couple went to the courthouse and were officially married. They settled into an off-base housing in Lakewood, Washington, near Fort Lewis, where Skylar was stationed. The couple had a lot in common and enjoyed guns, and went shooting together often. Skylar claims it was something Danielle especially enjoyed, because it meant spending time with him when he wasn't away for weeks on end during military training missions. He even built Danielle a custom AR-15 for her 19th birthday, in her favorite color, blue. Skylar Nemetz grew up around guns and fired his very first rifle when he was just a kid. A collector and builder of weapons, Skylar kept over a dozen guns in the apartment he shared with his wife Danielle. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple, but behind closed doors, that wasn't always the case. Danielle would quite often catch up with her friends while Skylar was away for Army-related duties. This was because Skylar didn't particularly like Danielle catching up with her friends while he was back in town. If Skylar went to visit his friends, however, he would leave Danielle at his parents' house while he visited his friends alone. James Peltier, who had been a father figure to Danielle growing up, said, "I met him on 3 occasions, and I think I shook his hand, and then he just went back to his car and left." Skylar made no effort to form any connection with the people closest to Danielle, and her friends began to notice. Skylar would also put pressure on Danielle to make sure the house was spotless for when he arrived back home, advising her to not leave a single mark on the carpet. September 27, 2014, the infantry soldier left on another mission in eastern Washington for 3 weeks of battlefield training. While Skylar Nemetz was away, he texted Danielle asking her to buy him a bottle of Sailor Jerry's and a bottle of Fireball so that Skylar, who was underage, could enjoy them when he got home. It was an odd request, but Danielle obliged. October 16, 2014. On the day Skylar Nemetz was returning home, Danielle video chatted with her best friend Michaela Yingling that morning, saying that she couldn't wait for him to get back. Later that night with Skylar home, Danielle video chatted with Michaela again. Michaela noted that she was sitting at a computer desk. Skylar was in the background, on the couch. She then ran over to him and jumped on his lap, and was acting all happy that he was home. Michaela couldn't help but feel the emotion that Danielle displayed was not genuine. Despite this, Danielle and Michaela said their goodbyes to each other and hung up the phone. But that would be the last time the two would ever speak.
911, what are you reporting?
Hi, I think somebody was shot, our neighbors. We heard a lot of banging, our neighbors were making a lot of noise, and we went to check. He said his rifle was out and there was an accident. He said her name's Danielle.
Danielle was the one that shot, and he accidentally shot her?
I don't know that part. We just heard the gun go off, and he said there's an accident.
Okay, is she breathing at all?
Is she breathing? Is she breathing? No.
And you said you don't know his name?
No, I don't.
Can you ask him his name?
What's your name? Skylar.
You hear someone screaming?
I'm their neighbor, and I heard a shot go off, and I wasn't sure if it was a shot or anything else. The husband has said that she's dead, and he doesn't want me going in to see her. It was a accidental discharge because the round was in a rifle.
So the male told you that his wife is dead?
Yes.
Okay. So she accidentally shot herself, is that correct? Or what you've been told anyway?
She accidentally shot herself. The husband does not want to talk about it. So we just need somebody here.
Yeah, we have been notified, it sounds like, from somebody else. Do you guys know where that rifle is now at all?
I didn't ask.
Skylar had told the neighbors that she had shot herself while cleaning the gun, but quickly changed his story to an accidental discharge. Police quickly arrived and took Skylar into custody while they investigated the scene. They found Danielle at the computer where she made a phone call to her friend Michaela, slumped over with a large amount of blood beneath the computer chair. It was obvious she had been shot in the back of the head at close range. Paramedics arrived shortly thereafter and did everything they could, but the gunshot had proven fatal, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Skylar had claimed to the police that he was taking the magazine out of his rifle when the gun hit his leg and caused it to go off, shooting Danielle in the process. He said he wasn't aware that there was a round in the chamber. This was again a different story to what he had told his neighbors. When asked again by another officer, he claimed he had shaken the rifle and it then discharged the gun. As he was being placed in the back of a police cruiser, he was notified that he was being audio and video recorded. Skylar started sobbing, but not a single tear was observed.
I'm not gonna do anything. Okay, just so you know, you're on camera, okay? Have you been advised of your Miranda rights? No. Okay, just hang tight, okay? You.
Oh my God. My wife. Why me? I love my wife so much.
He seemed to be able to change emotion almost instantly, going from sorrow to yelling. Many who watched this video afterwards would comment that it appeared to be an act. Skylar was eventually brought in for questioning. Detectives would start asking him to give his story of the events that took place.
I was behind her when she was on the computer. Right before anything happened, I was just like watching. I looked over her shoulder and I was looking what she was doing on the computer, and I was like, you know, you're really cute. Or whatever. I told her, you know, you're being really cute right now because I just think it's cute when she works and stuff like that. And so I took the rifle and I took the magazine out. And I don't know what the fuck happened. Like, I didn't charge it. I didn't pull the trigger in. I hit the safety. I turned the safety from safe to semi because I was about to charge it to make sure it was clear. Even though when I gave it to her, I knew it wasn't around. So here, I think that maybe when I was gone, she might have put a round in the chamber, maybe not knowing what she was doing. And so I don't know what the fuck. I did not pull the trigger, and the magazine was not on the weapon. I put the weapon on fire. It was on fire, so it had the probability of firing the weapon. And I don't know how the fuck it went off, but it went off.
There were already inconsistencies from what he had told the neighbors to the other officers, and the more he talked, the more his story would change slightly. He had claimed, as he removed the magazine, that the rifle went off, and in a later version claimed that the magazine wasn't even in the gun. As crime scene detectives began processing the scene, there were things that didn't quite make sense. Detectives now confronted Skylar.
I really have no problem
because your
with that.
story doesn't make sense. There's a huge fucking gap in your story. You're detailed all the way through up until the point where we had to talk to you for 2.5 hours to get you to realize that we're smarter than you think, and you shouldered a weapon because the fucking trajectory of that fucking round didn't match up. So immediately you changed the fucking story. That's about the 8th time you've done that. When your story, about 8 times, when your story doesn't make sense and you hear it for the 2nd time and we bring something up, you change the story. I'm trying to figure out why you put a gun to the back of your wife's head and pulled the trigger.
Yet again, his story changes, and he comes up with a new version of events.
Me firing the weapon, or me pulling the trigger was not an accident. Okay, I did not know there was a round in there. Her getting hit with that round, that was that, and it was an accident, and I was not mad. I was not angry.
Okay, so tell me what happened.
I was holding the weapon. I took the magazine out, okay? For some reason, okay, I took the fucking magazine out, I put the weapon on fire, and I pulled the trigger.
Police now began to try and establish a motive for as to why Skylar would do something like this. As it turns out, that information fell into the investigators' lap. Anthony Foss, who was one of Skylar's best friends in the U.S. Army, his wife, named Carrie Foss, walked into the police station to make a statement. She told a harrowing tale of Skylar subjecting Danielle to continual domestic abuse. It had become so bad that Danielle had to wear long sleeves to cover the bruises on her arms. Carrie had told investigators that Danielle had confided this information to her. Police had also found a receipt in the apartment for some roses. Carrie told police that Danielle, who was working at a granite counter company at the time, had told her about her boss, Michael Newton, who she found attractive. She believes that there was no relationship between them other than work. Carrie also told police that the roses Danielle bought were given to her boss, Michael, who then passed them on to his wife. In return, Michael went and purchased the alcohol that Skylar had requested and gave it to Danielle. Skylar had previously found work messages between Danielle and her boss and believed they were having an affair. He was under the assumption that Anthony Foss had bought the alcohol for him. But when he found out that Danielle's boss, Michael, bought it, he was seething. Danielle had also told Carrie that while Skylar was away, she had caught up with an old friend by the name of Jeremy Henry. It is Carrie's belief that her husband Anthony may have seen the messages and told Skylar, adding to his paranoia. Police now spoke with Danielle's boss, Michael Newton. He confirmed the fact that their relationship was purely professional and only work-related.
So did the relationship become more than just a working relationship?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We never did anything together whatsoever.
The next person on the list to talk to was Danielle's friend, Jeremy Henry. He told police the last time he had seen Danielle was the previous Wednesday night.
And have you had some contact with her in the last 10 months?
Yes. I was actually at her house Wednesday night.
On Wednesday night?
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you spend the night that night?
No.
Okay, in the last 3 weeks while he was in Yakima in training, did you spend the night over there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many times was that?
I believe it was like 2 or 3, sir.
Well, which was it? I mean, you're not talking a long time ago.
No, sir. Might have been two days. It was just like she was alone. She wanted somebody to talk to, watch movies.
Did you guys sleep in the same bed?
No, sir.
Did you have an intimate relationship?
No,
you're not in trouble if you do. I mean,
no.
She's a pretty girl. I mean, no one would blame you if you did. I'm just saying, you know. But you had no relationship with her.
No,
Did she have an affair with anybody that you're aware of? You guys were really close friends. What about her new boss?
No, sir. It was all work.
Investigators now felt like they had put enough pieces of the puzzle together to bring a charge of first-degree murder against Skylar. There were many things that didn't add up in this case. After pointing the rifle at the back of his wife's head and pulling the trigger, Skylar did not call 911. Rather, his neighbors did. The neighbors also claimed it took Skylar several minutes to answer the door. Police had found that he quickly attempted to hide the bottles of alcohol before police arrived at the residence, finding alcohol residue in the toilet. The history of abuse and domestic violence which he tried to cover up. Skylar was held in Pierce County Jail under a $1 million bond. When the bond amount was released, Skylar's mother Danette sold her house, car, and jewelry to pay for his bond. She also hired a leading defense attorney to represent Skylar. Over a year after his wife was tragically killed, Skylar Nemetz's trial would begin. The prosecution would present to the court an angry, controlling individual who would consistently argue with Danielle. Prosecutors explained to the jury they found it hard to believe that a gun collector, builder, and a soldier in the US Army could make a fundamental mistake like pointing a gun at a loved one and pulling the trigger. One of the first lessons ever taught with a gun is always assume it is loaded. Extensive forensic weapon testing, including trigger pull analysis, had identified no faults with the gun and gave no reason why it should have fired without someone intending it to be fired. Skylar was to take the stand now and answer questions from the prosecution. When asked about the events of that night, he told the same story as he did during his interrogation. He was asked why he didn't try to perform any medical aid to Danielle, and he simply said, "I already knew she was dead." Skylar was also asked why instead of ringing 911 or trying to help his wife, he went and poured the alcohol down the toilet.
For some stupid apparent reason, I thought alcohol needed to be poured out, which is it was completely stupid. I don't know why. If I could have done what I wanted, if I could go back and do what was right, I would have sat there and held her. And I would have prayed. And I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have held her.
The prosecution now probed him about the blood evidence left in his apartment.
You know that you left a considerable amount of blood at various locations within this apartment after you were injured, correct?
I saw the pictures.
Correct?
Correct.
That's when it happened, correct?
As far as I know, I did not see the injury until I was in my interrogation. And I know that because in my interrogation I see myself looking at it.
Did you just testify that you injured your finger in the firing of that weapon?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So we know that only after you fired the weapon would you have left a blood trail in that apartment, correct?
Yes.
All right. And among the areas that you left blood was what's called a spatter, I guess, technical term, but a significant amount of blood around the door frame of your bedroom. Correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And we also know that you left a smear on the top of the refrigerator in the kitchen, correct?
Yes, I've seen that picture.
Okay. And you also left a smear by the slider, correct?
Yes, I've also seen that picture.
And that would positively indicate areas that you went before you ever answered the door, correct?
Yes, possibly.
Possibly? Did you go to the slider after answering the door?
I do not remember.
You don't remember?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You remember pulling the trigger?
No, I do not.
Don't remember that either.
Prosecutors would argue that he spent so much time pouring out alcohol and moving around the apartment while neighbors were banging on his door that he never once considered helping his wife. Skylar's defense attorney would argue this claim and state that the killing of Danielle was unintentional and at worst, Skylar should receive a manslaughter charge. He would also argue that there was no premeditation to this tragic event. The jury took an entire week to come to a decision on the case. Skylar Nemetz was found guilty of manslaughter and not guilty of premeditated first-degree murder. The jury felt that prosecutors had not proven beyond a doubt that Skylar had intended to kill his wife, Danielle. He was sentenced to 13.5 years of prison time for the crime. Skylar will be released in 2029. After the sentencing, Danielle's great aunt, Vera Schumard, was asked for her opinion on the case.
Well, I'm somewhat disappointed, but I did leave this up to God, and this is what he came up with. So I think the attorneys did a good job of presenting their case, and I think the jurors were interrupted too many times. And that might have had something to do with their thought process.
Case number 5, the sickening case of Trent Paschal.
48-year-old Trent Paschal clicked onto the popular site YouTube on October 21st, 2020, and began filming this video.
I didn't choose this. Your mom chose this. She's been cheating on me for a long time. I have audio of her talking to other guys. I didn't do nothing wrong to her. But she's been playing me for a fool. I told her not to mess with me, not to mess with my emotions. Don't play with me. I put everything into this relationship. I have done nothing to your mom. I've never hit her. I've never hurt her. I've never called her names. A couple of times when I got really mad, I would say a bad word or something, but I've done everything I can. I haven't done anything wrong.
To most people, it would seem that it is a man simply having difficulty with a relationship. The real truth behind this video was about to be revealed, however. Our condolences go out to the family and loved ones of Savannah Paschal. Texas has many small rural towns, and one of them is La Marque. This quiet, nondescript town is a place of country living, with an easygoing lifestyle. This is where Savannah Paschal, 22 years old at the time, would meet Trent Paschal, who was 40 at the time. Savannah, who had a young child named William from a previous relationship, was looking for some stability in her life. Trent owned a contracting business and had a more mature personality than the people Savannah was used to hanging around with, and the two clicked. Several months of dating each other went by in a flash, and they decided to marry. After only a year together, Savannah gave birth to her second child, Mackenzie. Once her child, Mackenzie, had grown a bit older and was able to go into childcare, Savannah began thinking about job prospects to support the family. She landed a job as a funeral director, and she was a natural. Her attention to detail and compassion was noticed by all that attended one of her services. La Marque has a population of just under 20,000, so word spread easily through the town. Many people were choosing Savannah to provide their loved ones with a dignified final goodbye. As for Trent, his contracting business was going great, and turnover was over $1 million a year. There was still one thing troubling Trent, however, and that was that his wife, who was 18 years younger than him, would leave for a younger man. He became suspicious every time Savannah was on the phone, and started scanning through her Facebook friends, accusing her of cheating with male friends she had on the platform. Trent then restricted who she could talk to, and even made her unfriend or block people he believed to be a threat. Her denial of cheating on Trent would often end in heated arguments, and Savannah quickly realized that Trent was not the man she once knew. He began to control every facet of her life, from her social life to finances to even what she wore. As his paranoia increased, he found himself texting Savannah multiple times per day to make sure she wasn't with another man, and would regularly go through her phone checking her messages. He even asked her to regularly send pictures of her location to prove where she was. Savannah's family began to notice and could see Trent's obsessive and controlling behavior, and advised her to end the relationship. She agreed, but for the sake of her kids was trying to make the best of a bad situation. While this was going on, the world changed forever, and the pandemic hit, which caused most of the world to go into lockdown. This hit Trent's contracting business severely, and he could barely afford to pay his bills. Savannah's job as a funeral director was the only thing keeping the family afloat. As Trent's business began to fall apart, and he started losing control, his behavior became even more erratic. Savannah at this point realized that she was being emotionally and physically manipulated, and was a victim of domestic violence. She phoned her parents and told them she was going to file for divorce. Little did she know that Trent had secretly installed an app on her phone and was listening in on her conversation. Her parents told her to leave the house and go. However, Savannah decided that she was going to tell Trent in person that she wanted a divorce. On October 21, 2020, this small country town was about to change. Forever. It started out like any other day for residents of La Marque, with most people on their daily commute to work. However, for some residents of Hawksview Drive, they were able to hear a heated argument going on. Savannah and Trent were engaged in an argument that was so loud it could be heard across the street. She had told Trent that she no longer wanted to live with him, and would move into her parents for the time being. Trent's whole world came crashing down at this moment. After a lengthy argument, things appeared to calm down, and Trent left the house in his truck. Savannah was later observed leaving and walking to a neighbor's house in tears. She later came back, got in her car, and left for her parents' house. Trent returned home and had made up his mind about what he was going to do next. He turned his camera on and began recording this video in an attempt to discredit his wife's reputation.
Recording this because I want my daughter to know that I love you, Mackenzie Paschal. I'm so sorry that I've done this. I want you to know that you mean everything to me. And William, I love you too. I love you so much. I love you like you're my own. I didn't choose this. Your mom chose this. She's been cheating on me for a long time. I have audio of her talking to other guys. I didn't do nothing wrong to her. When we first got together, I told her, "You're too young for me." There's an 18-year-old difference in her age, and I knew she was kind of too young, but I didn't. She's been playing me for a fool. I told her not to mess with me, not to mess with my emotions. Don't play with me. I put everything into this relationship. I have done nothing to your mom. I've never hit her. I've never hurt her. I've never called her names. A couple of times when I got really mad, I would say a bad word or something, but I've done everything I can. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm like, why me? My hair's a mess and I look horrible. Oh, sorry. Take these off. I love you so much. Please do something good with your life. Please do something really good, because you deserve a good life. And I don't know what else to say. I'm so sorry I don't have better words right now. I'm hurting so bad. Dad, you've done a lot for me too, and you've taken care of me. You raised me good. You've done whatever you could. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love you so much. You love me like your own.
As it turned out, while Trent was recording this, Savannah and her mother pulled up to the house. Trent quickly turned off the camera and went and hid inside of the shower, ready to enact his plan. Savannah and her mother, Shirley, entered the house, and Shirley decided to go to the bathroom. As she walked into the bathroom, Trent revealed himself, wielding a shotgun and pointing it at Shirley. He said in a chilling voice, "I'm going to kill you, and then kill Savannah too." Shirley began to run, and Trent opened fire, narrowly missing her, and instead blasting a hole in the bathroom wall. She managed to escape the house, and while running down the road heard several more gunshots ring out inside of the house. As she cowered in a neighboring property, she saw Trent exit the house while on his cell phone. In a sickening move, Trent had decided to call Savannah's aunt only moments after shooting her niece, to gloat about what he had done. Just like the video before it posted to YouTube, Trent wanted an audience to take notice of him. He got into his pickup truck and drove away from the house. Shirley ran back towards the house in a panic looking for Savannah. Her worst fears were realized when she found her daughter on the floor with several gunshot wounds to her upper body. Neighbors had called emergency services, who arrived on scene shortly after. They rushed Savannah to the hospital, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead on arrival. Police immediately put out an APB to be on the lookout for Trent's truck. It was spotted by police 45 minutes later at a Walmart north of Houston. Trent, however, having had control of Savannah for their entire relationship, was not about to let someone else take control of him.
Investigators say the man shot was on the run, accused of killing his estranged wife. The murder investigation began earlier today in Lamarck. The deputy-involved shooting happened tonight in the parking lot of a Walmart off the North Freeway and West Road, just south of the North Belt.
There is still a heavy law enforcement presence out here right now. Excuse me, and you can see it right behind me. Most of their focus has been back on that side of the parking lot. You can see a car and a truck back there. A lot of deputies looking over there as part of their investigation. As you were mentioning before, Harris County deputies were looking for the murder suspect out of Lamarck, and they ended up here at this Walmart after getting information that that person might be here. Now, when deputies spotted him in a different car, they then pursued that vehicle as it was heading back to what they believe was the suspect's car. They had ordered the suspect to get out. They said he had a gun, ordered him to drop the gun, but he didn't do so, and that's when he was shot by a deputy out here, shot several times and taken to the hospital. He's in last check critical but stable condition.
As Trent lay in hospital for the next 6 weeks, healing from the gunshot wounds, he began to wonder what was going to happen to him. The day came where he was released from hospital and immediately arrested by deputies. Expecting a life of prison, Trent was surprised when the charge was felony murder. In Texas, this made him eligible for bail, which was set at $450,000. Trent couldn't believe it when his family came and bailed him out, and he was back out on the streets again with the same freedoms he had enjoyed before slaughtering his wife. This did come with a few strings attached, however. He was ordered to wear an ankle bracelet, had a curfew time set at his mother's house from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m., and was not allowed to leave the state. It didn't take Trent long to renege on the deal that was given to him. He violated his bail by missing a court appearance. He then violated it a second time by being caught speeding. He again violated it for a third time by having stolen plates on his car, and several more sets of plates in the trunk. Each time he violated his bail conditions, police decided not to revoke his freedom. He was free to continue living his life in Lamarck. Trent began to feel untouchable and posted pictures on social media of him holidaying in Galveston Bay. It was reported to police, who finally decided to revoke his bail. Trent, however, had other ideas. Knowing that authorities were closing in on him, he decided to make a break for it. Police arrived to arrest Trent, but he had removed his ankle monitor and was long gone. Meanwhile, Trent was visiting a local car dealership and asked if he could take a test drive. The salesman was only too happy, and they left in a Chevy Tahoe. When they pulled up at a gas station to refuel the vehicle, Trent pulled a knife on the salesman and demanded he get out of the car. The salesman contacted police and shortly after shared pictures of the man on their social media. Many commented that it was Trent Paschal, who had been in the news recently for his wife's murder. The manhunt for Trent began.
The guy stands out. He's very arrogant and cocky. He's going to be out there. He's, in my opinion, a womanizer.
Officer Hunt says Paschal was last seen leaving his mother's house riding a scooter, not driving the SUV he's accused of stealing at knife point from a car dealership. Hunt thinks he's close.
My guess would be a hotel, shacked up with somebody that just hasn't seen the news.
While many leads came in and suspected sightings of Trent, none lead to his location. 9 long months had passed with authorities beginning to lose hope. That is, until a tip came into their hotline that Trent was in an RV in Florida, staying at a recreational park. On New Year's Eve, police surrounded the RV and ordered Trent to come out with his hands up. A single gunshot was heard inside of the RV, and the sound of a slumping body to accompany it. Trent was never going to let someone else take control of him, and he took his own life right there, instead of facing his actions. Savannah's family was left empty. They wanted to have the chance to face their daughter's killer. Now longing for answers, Savannah's mother and father made a public statement.
My name is Shirley Kinchin. Our daughter Savannah was murdered by her husband on August 21st, October 21st, 2020, after she let him know that she could no longer live with a person who was a habitual criminal and that she wanted more for their children. Did I want him to be held responsible for his actions? Did I want to look him in the eye and for him to face me again with what he had done? Yes. Am I sorry that he no longer walks on this earth? No.
If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. We look forward to bringing you another worst case very soon.